it's Drybear. And Ready or Not has just launched on console finally and has released their big 1.0 release, and I already covered a video going over the details of that update. But what I wanted to do today is help people that are brand new to the game get into the game, because while it is a very intense and very fun game, it's also highly tactical with a lot of different options, different things that you can do, and different ways that you can approach every situation. And honestly, when you are a brand new player to the game, it's quite overwhelming jumping into it. So today I'm going to try and alleviate that. And we'll start with how to play, or how to get started, like actually get into a match. So you're probably going to have to complete a tutorial. It's useful to do so. And then you'll have an option to play either single player or multiplayer, and there is cross-play enabled, cross-platform if you'd like to. There are some really cool options for single player, like commander mode, which allows you to go through like an actual progression of you being a SWAT officer team leader, managing your officers and trying to stay alive. There'll also be options for commander as well, where you'll be able to turn on Iron Man mode or have other things that are along that as well. And you'll have like save options for this too. So you can actually turn on like permadeath mode and some other things if you're really ready for the challenge. And they also added in a new hard mode option for that as well. You can also do quick play if you just want a real quick single player experience, but I would recommend kind of leaning into the commander mode. Even with your default settings, it would be really fun for playing around with that. There's also multiplayer if you want to be able to like play cross-play with other friends or play with other people online. They added in new options with the 1.0 release to be able to talk to your teammates through the in-game like command system, which makes it easier. It means if you don't have a microphone or you don't want to type and something like that, it will give you the option to use the in-game system, which is quite nice. So you'll have that option for playing for multiplayer as well. So you'll choose between single player, multiplayer, or training if you'd like to, but I would recommend going for the commander mode with the default settings if that's what you're looking for, or applying other people to play with either online or friends you may have. Now, when it comes to difficulties, I would recommend leaning towards casual or standard if you're just getting into the game. That delineates what's part of these modes here. You'll probably want one of these though. Even if you're new, maybe picking up on standard. I think this is kind of like a good bar to raise yourself to. If you're not used to, you know, tactical shooters or shooters in general, and maybe you just wanted an easier onboarding experience, you can play casual, but I would kind of encourage you to try out standard as a hard. Definitely don't start on hard. This gets crazy difficult. You will get blasted by enemies, and the enemies are incredibly sneaky as well. So this one is, I'm still struggling with this one here, but it's super fun if you've been playing for a little bit and you want a fun challenge. Now, one thing you'll have to get used to is the headquarters. So when you're in between missions, you'll be coming into the headquarters. You'll spawn basically standing right here, and you have all your different functionalities and different areas you can go in the headquarters that are very useful. The first one you'll want to know about is when you're coming in through the headquarters is your briefing room. This is where you will select missions and start missions. Depending on how far you are on your save file or what you're doing in multiplayer, you'll be able to come here and select a mission. It'll show what missions you've unlocked. When you first get here on a fresh save file, it'll only have one mission available, and you have to work your way through those missions to unlock others. There are also like DLCs that you can download and play as part of that as well, which unlock new maps. And they also have a very generous option where only the lobby leader, like the owner of the host of the lobby, needs to have the DLC, and then you'll be able to invite other people to try that out if you want to have it yourself as well. So you'll be selecting your mission here. Once the mission is selected, all you have to do is press Y on PC to start. I'm guessing they probably use select or something on console to be able to, but if you know the console commands or keybinds, drop those down below for anyone who might be interested. But this is where you're going to be selecting your mission to start with. Now, when you're doing the missions, you have a score based on how well you did, like how much evidence you collected, how many of the suspects usually are still alive and not dead when you're towards the end, capturing and saving civilians that are part of that, and also how many officers died. So if you can do all the objectives and, you know, get all the suspects and all the civilians and all the evidence and do everything perfectly, you get an S. Usually you'll probably be between B and A depending on how well you do, but it is useful to kind of remember where those things are and what difficulty you were on when you cleared it. All right, so before we go into loadouts and other things like that, I just wanted to jump into the first match and kind of show you the ropes, like so you understand what's going on. So if you're playing solo, you will have two different teams that come along with you of AI. These squad AIs have gotten significantly better in the 1.0 update, and they can be a massive boon for you. You can also go like solo Superman if you want to just do it solo, but on the higher difficulties, it's going to be very hard to solo, especially if you're doing non-lethal. Like right now, I have a beanbag shotgun that shoots beanbags. It's for non-lethal to get a better score in a lot of cases, but it makes it a lot harder, especially if everyone that you're facing is strapped to the teeth. So let's walk through how to play, what to look for and just know how to navigate your space, because a lot of that can be very confusing at first. Now, the first thing you'll notice is coming from other shooters that this is not a fast-paced shooter. You're not going to be running around a lot. It actually took me quite a while to get used to the movement speed. So this is your normal movement speed as you're moving around. However, sound is very important. Suspects can hear you coming, and so you might want to actually walk. On PC, you can hold left shift to walk. We'll use this pretty much most of the time when I'm breaching an area where I don't know where the suspects are, because if you can get even a split-second jump on them, it makes a big difference. I'm not sure what the walk would be on console. Again, if you have console keybinds, drop those in the comments down below. So you'd be walking like this. However, if you're not holding the walk button, you'll move around this way. If you want to go slightly faster, you can go into a state that's called low ready. So this is, okay, you can be like high ready, which is where we are right now, where I'm like aiming and doing things. However, if you wanted to, you could do low ready, which on PC you hit spacebar and it lowers your weapon. If your weapon is lowered, you actually will move slightly faster. However, you won't be able to shoot. Like right now, I can't fire my weapon or do anything. So I actually can go into high ready or low ready. So if you want to go slightly faster, usually at the start of the mission when you're entering and you don't have anyone shooting at you, you can go into low ready, but high ready is where you're going to want to be. And usually I will walk if I don't know where the enemies are or what we're doing. Next, even with your weapons, either primary or offhand weapon, there's going to be a couple things that you can do. The first one is going to be able to turn on the attachment for the weapon. For me, that is mouse 5, like side mouse buttons. I'm sure there'll be probably a context menu on console, but for me, it's like mouse 5, which is one of the side buttons on my mouse, and you can rebind all of these. So you'll notice that if I hit mouse 5, it actually will turn on the red dot. You can get all kinds of attachments for your weapons, flashlights, tactical attachments as well. So that's useful. And the other thing that I would recommend being aware of is going to be called canting. I'm guessing this is a real life thing, but canting is basically when you have your weapon and you're not canting, you will end up aiming down sights, ADS, either with your ACOG or whatever sight attachment you have, or red dot, or if you have iron sights, you'll be looking down the iron sights. But that might not be the best case, especially if you're breaching in tight corners. Like if you're trying to go around corners and there's suspects hiding behind, it can get kind of annoying because you can't shove your gun, especially if it's a long gun, into the wall. So it can be useful to use the cant system. For me, that's O on PC, O as in orange. So you press O, and when I actually aim down sights, instead of aiming down sights, it actually just kind of leans it leans into the weapon and keeps it close to the chest. And this version, while not quite as easy to pick up on your sights, you can use a red dot for this, but it's a lot easier in tight corners because you can actually aim and shoot and give you a little bit more visibility than if you weren't canting. You obviously have your weapon straight up in front of you and it gets blocked by objects and things like that. It's very useful to be able to use this on a cant to be able to round corners and things like that. Very useful. Next is information gathering and actual recon. This is very important as well. The number one thing that you want to use, at least if you're starting out and you haven't changed your loadout, is going to be your mirror gun. So if you press 5 on PC, this is going to be your tactical, whatever your tactical equipment is that you bring with you. A lot of people bring mirror guns, but you don't necessarily need to. This gives you a camera that you can use to look around corners with slide effects. So you can actually hold left click with this and it will put a camera in front of your character. So it's a little bit in front of you and you can actually use it to look around corners. But also if you were to go over to this door here, however, the best use of the mirror gun is to be able to see into a room that is closed. This is the best way you can actually get prepared. And again, you don't really want to go willy-nilly into doors, just opening them and walking into rooms. You'll get shot at. The suspects will be there with weapons and shoot you down, or it could be trapped, tripwires, explosives, things like that. So what you want to do is you want to bring out your mirror gun. If you look at the bottom of a closed door, it'll give you the prompt to actually use the mirror under the door. When you do this, you can look into the room without opening the door. And this is super useful for giving you that view. You can see if the door is trapped. You can see if there's a suspect right behind the door that's getting ready to shoot at you. So you can use this as your opportunity to gain information. Now, when it comes to opening doors and breaching, you have tons of options. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you exactly how to do it. I think you should just explore and figure out what works best for you. But based on where you look at the door and what you have equipped, you have different options here. So the first option is going to be able to just go to the top middle of the door. If you press this, it'll open the door and you can close the door the same way. If you want to, though, you can kick the door open, which is a heavy breach. Makes lots of noise, but sometimes it can scare people on the other side as well. And then your other options are going to be looking at the handle. So you can actually peek through the door. If you look at the handle and you press this, you see how it kind of peek through and you look at it. This is also useful if the door is trapped, so you can actually peek and see if it's like trip mined or something, and you can disable the trip mine while peeking through the door without opening it all the way, which is pretty useful. And if the door is locked, for example, you can go to the handle and check to see if it's locked. So actually hold this to see, you can see the door is unlocked. If it is locked, you can bring out your lockpick and unlock it, or of course you can kick it open or breach it with a breach shotgun to get it open if you really need to. But this is where you're going to want to take your time, work your way through, see if there's enemies on the other side waiting for you. You can see here, this guy obviously is armed and coming near the door, but I haven't opened it yet, so I have the opportunity to, like, let's say we want to, you know, oh, he's going to open it. All right. If that's how it's going to be. So this is a good opportunity to move on to capturing suspects. So when it comes to capturing suspects, you generally want to try and disable them or incapacitate them, though it may not be possible depending on the circumstances you're in. And as when you're starting out, you usually will end up just taking lethal, using rifles and things like that to take them all down. However, you want to get them in this complicit state. So you want to get them to comply. You do that by pressing the F button on PC, which will have your character shout out and say, get on the ground, drop your weapon. Once they're in this state, you can order them to turn around by pressing F here. He'll turn around, and if you're behind the target and press F, you'll restrain them. Once they're restrained, as far as I know, they can't really get out of that restraint. Now that they're restrained, they're not a threat to anyone. However, you're not done yet. You want to make sure you capture the evidence along with it as well. So here you're going to hold F and capture the evidence. Once it's bagged up, it's ready to go. So you'll kind of go around and doing that. The setting that you see here for showing the evidence on the ground, I like using just because I don't want to like run around and look for it. But if you go over to accessibility in the options, you can enable highlight weapons. It just makes the weapons easier to see. If you're trying to get a perfect score like an S rank, you will need to capture all evidence, including all weapons dropped, both main weapons and if they have any sidearms as well. So you want to capture those and get those down. But now that he's bound, he's compliant, he's not a threat anymore, and we've bagged up his weapon, we're good to go on that front. But you may not have that option with some of the people you run into. So you want to kind of peek around corners, see if there's anyone in here, call out to them, tell them to get down on the ground. But if you do see a shooter, you have a couple options. If you have a lethal weapon in hand, you can shoot them in the leg or the arm to kind of get them to comply, or you can shoot them with what I have, which is a non-lethal beanbag shotgun, which will actually, get them to like stagger for a second, and you can force them to comply. So let's show you how to like actually get them to comply safely. So if they're out here shooting, we can actually just jump out here and use the beanbag shotgun. You'll notice that like as soon as you shoot, they drop the weapon sometimes, and you can just yell at them a bunch to get them to go and then comply them that way. Or you can just shoot them with a non-lethal weapon to stagger them. Or if you're using a real lethal weapon, you can just pull out your lethal weapon and come towards them and shoot them that way. And then if they're disabled, obviously, you got no problem. You can just use your weapon to take them down. So let's see if we can find somebody here. This one's locked. We're just going to open this one and get this open. We can kick it open, see if there's anybody in here. And again, you can actually just shoot them in the leg if you want to, if we're using a real weapon or a non-lethal weapon like a taser or something like that, beanbag shotgun. You can use that to just get in their face and force them to comply, or just take them out and eliminate them if they're a problem. If there are civilians nearby, you generally want to bind them if you can, just to make sure they're not a threat. Sometimes they can be hiding as civilians. And also you will be docked points for any unauthorized use of force, which means that if I walk up to this guy and I press B is the bash button to bash people. If I were to bash the civilian, you can see I can get knocked for too much force, or if you end up killing them, you can end up ruining the mission or getting taken out for that. So you want to make sure you're staying above board as much as possible if you want to get the best score. Now, the next thing to talk about is going to be controlling any AI squad members you might have. So if you're playing with a group of people or others, you may not have these, but if you're playing commander mode or you're playing single player, you'll probably have some of these here. You'll notice on top of their heads that 2 of them are blue and 2 of them are red. And then if you look down in the bottom right corner, or even if I like bring up this menu here, if I scroll using the scroll wheel on PC, you'll notice that it goes from gold. Gold means everybody. Blue means anyone with blue on their helmet, and then red means anyone with red on their helmet. This just allows you to split your team up into different sections. Maybe you have red clear the right hallway, you have blue clear the left hallway, and you breach the main door, or maybe you want everyone to fall in and breach the main door and work together, or breach and clear, or you want them to spread out and look for evidence. There's tons of things that you can do, and this isn't going to be an exhaustive list, but a general idea on how to use it. So on PC, you can bring up the menu with middle mouse, so you press in the middle mouse. I'm sure there'll be a keybind for it on console as well. And you have all these options, and this is actually a contextual menu, which means that based on what you're looking at or where you're standing, the options for what commands you can give will change. So by default, if I'm looking at nothing, you'll see how I have move to, fall in, cover, hold, deploy. So hold is like, hey, stay where you are, don't go anywhere, right? You can stay with me, or maybe hold right here, or maybe you want them to fall in. And even on fall in, you'll notice there's options. Single file, there's double file, diamond or wedge formation. All these can be useful depending on what you're looking for, and you can try it in a safe area on like how you want them to spread out and where you want them to stand. And then when you get to objectives, you're gonna be able to use this menu to do a ton of different things. So you can bring up the middle mouse, you can have them stack up on the door, like split the stack and cover, which means you're going to breach it and you want them to come together, or you want them to be able to open the door or do things that way, or maybe you want them to breach the door. So you can actually have them like open the door or breach the door, or you can have them mirror under the door, so we can have them mirror it and they'll report back on what they find. It's actually quite extensive, and you can use this menu for your teammates on online play now as well, which is super useful. So he's looking under the door. He says it's safe, there's nothing there, so we can actually open it up, and there's no things there either. So you can actually then, now that it's clear, tell them to open it. Open and clear. So now you tell them to go open and clear, and they'll open the door and clear the room. I mean, this is the entry of the map. There's not going to be anything here, but you can see how much they spread out and work together as well, which is super useful. You can even have them break the door. You can have them clear the door and then throw a flashbang in if you think there's a whole bunch of enemies in there. So maybe you come here and you look under the door and you realize there's a whole bunch of bad guys chilling here, real bad spot to be in, or maybe you notice a trap, and so you can actually have them work together to like, hey, open, kick this door and clear it. And since I'm on gold, it'll be all four of them, so they'll group up. And it's super realistic. You can't stand in their way either, so you have to like give them space to do it. He'll kick it open and they'll go through. And on commander mode, you are responsible for your officers, their mental health, their physical health, whether they stay alive or not. And so being able to master these commands gives you a really good option for it. You'll even notice how they split and take the wings here, which is useful. And then you can choose to go whatever direction you want to, depending on what your strategy is. And again, it is a very serious situation. There's usually civilians and hostages, so how you approach the situation will be different depending on what strategies you want to use, what loadouts you bring, and how you handle everything that's presented in front of you. Next, let's talk about how to keep track of your objectives, because you have a really cool handy dandy deployable like iPad, like tablet that you can use. So on PC, this is keybind tab. So if you press tab, it'll bring your tablet out. By default, if you just tap it, it'll come out like this, and you kind of keep it in front of your screen. However, if your eyes don't see this very well, or it's just not quite enough, this is dynamic, by the way. So as you complete objectives, it'll update. Instead, you can hold tab and it will zoom in on it, like full screen it, so you can actually see it. So here you can see that we're trying to do all these different things: find specific people, arrest suspects, find specific like weapons that are on site, defuse bombs. It'll give you a whole list of things: find meth labs, find meth storage, things like that. So this is where you're going to see all of that information. You can even look at the map of where the map is and the layout of everything. You can check the cameras of your teammates, which is super important, or just look at what's available and what you're using. Then, depending on your loadout, you might have different items, different weapons, different droppables, different consumables. In a lot of cases, depending on the situation, you may want to use like a flashbang as you breach into a room. You have like, you know, rubber bullet grenades that disable people. Maybe you want to use tear gas or chemical agents as you're going into a room. All of these can be super useful, and depending on what your loadout is, you might bring those along. You can even check those as well. So we know there's enemies in here. We can just kind of like close this out, let this flashbang hit, and then we can come in here. And you really want to be loud and aggressive as well on enemies. Now, once you feel comfortable changing your loadout, there's a couple places you can do this before you launch into the mission, and you probably will as you get better and better, as you want to bring different options, lethal, non-lethal, different secondaries, and he's also like spread it out through your squad as well. So the place I always go to is the shooting range. So if you enter here from the headquarters, when you're outside of a mission, you go to the shooting range. You have the option to go to the shooting range here to test out weapons and see how they function. or you can come over here and you can change your loadout here. There's, like I said, there's a few spots you could do this, but this is the one that I use. So you want to come here, you can check your loadout. This is also where you can change your customization as well. If you want to wear a different shirt or look different, whatever. So your main loadout is here. You have your primary weapon, your secondary weapon. There's a lot of choices here. You have assault rifles. They added, like I said, 8 new weapons to this as well. Submachine guns. You have shotguns, launchers, flash grenade launchers, gas grenades, non-lethal launchers as well. My weapon of choice is usually the beanbag shotgun for non-lethal. Then you can bring a sidearm that has all kinds of other options as well. Different sidearm attachments, different round qualities or calibers, and different attachments for those as well. And then once you have that set up, you can actually just go to your main loadout, change out your tactical attachment. So you're using mirror gun. Maybe you want to use a tactical shield if there's a lot of shooters on site. Battering ram to get doors open, or a breach shotgun is even more fun. Literally just shoot the handle off the door and then go inside. Or you can do stingers, gas launchers, flash grenades, things like that. You can change your armor type for whether it's more front, back, or full. The type of defensive plate that's in it, whether it's ceramic, Kevlar, or steel, that all have different effects depending on what you're going up against. You can change your ammunition as well. Maybe you want to bring less secondaries and bring more primary ammunition. You're limited on what you can bring on a single run as well. You can also change your deployables, so like gas grenades, bullet grenades, flashbangs, lockpick guns, tasers if you want to disable a target, all kinds of things that you can play around with. And you can even change your headgear as well, whether it's full frontal, full cover, you know, protection from gas, you know, the goggles that you have that protect against flashes, things like that. You can put things around your mouth so you're a little more muffled but more protected from random shrapnel and things like that. A lot that you can go into, but at least you know where the loadouts are. And you can also, when you're in here, by the way, as well, you can change out your other officers and what they're bringing too. And if you want to change your officer's loadout, it's this drop down in the top left corner. So just click this either yourself, and then you can check your officers and what they're bringing. If you want to change their weapons, maybe you want them to bring a different weapon. You can also bring them with all non-lethal or, you know, different setups. Maybe you have someone that brings a, like if you bring like a deployable or something like that, have them bring different, you know, different items they can bring along with them, different attachments that they bring along with them, and you can kit out your whole squad, as especially when you're playing in commander mode. Maybe you want to have, you know, minute control over what you're bringing and who's bringing it, and then you can have them do different things throughout the mission to perfect it as well. And that's just kind of like a quick rundown of all the mechanics in Ready or Not. I think it's super fun, and a lot of it's just very different. You don't really get games like this very often, and it's very tactical, very intense. You get caught off guard in a lot of ways, and I would recommend kind of taking your time with it as well, as things get real spicy real fast. You can play on the hardest mode, you can play on different difficulty levels and play commander mode and see how far you go. And the ultimate challenge would be playing on hard with commander mode and Iron Man at the same time. So it's all permadeath. You have to keep track of your officers and keep them safe, and you want to get the highest score possible as you're moving through. But take your time, do, you know, explore the universe and the world how you see fit. But hopefully this was a good starter point for you to get into the game. If you are, you know, not new to the game, you want to share, you know, some other advice for people, drop that down in the comments as well. If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people. And don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.